The plan is rarely the problem. Coaching is tested when context changes. Behavior, weather, recovery, resources all act like a constraint, and you still have to deliver the session with the same intention, with all the safety.
Hi, I am Nishil Jadhav. I am currently pursuing MSc in Applied Strength and Conditioning Science at St. Mary's University. I coach across sprints, jumps, and athletic development contexts. The purpose of this video is to critically reflect on my coaching interaction that challenged me, specifically while managing engagement and behavior in under 14 girls group session while placement with English lacrosse, preserving my learning conditions. I am using Driscoll's what, so what, now what model. I am choosing Driscoll's over other reflective models because it's time efficient, action oriented, and decision focused. It focused more to translate a real incident into analysis and then into a practical plan. I can implement and evaluate compared with more expensive models like Gibbs, which can encourage longer descriptive narrations and broader learning cycle frameworks. Like Klob, Driscoll is better suited to rapid applied coaching reviews, especially when I need a clear next session action plan. Finally, I am treating reflection as a coach development tool only if it produces measurable changes in my coaching behaviors. This reflection is based on an under 14 outdoor session aimed at sprint related movement qualities. The core issue was not the drill choices, but it was my coaching interaction, instructions, attentions, transitions, and my behavior under real constraints. In a session which I conducted for under 14 girls during my placement with English lacrosse, I lost a group engagement during instructions and transitions between the exercises, which resulted in declined engagement, side conversations, and slow transitions between the exercises. The first critical insight is that my response was driven fully by assumptions. I assumed more explanation would create more control. However, it did not work. In practice, it was completely the opposite. The longer talking created ideal time, and ideal time created space for disruptions. The second insight is that I became too attached to the pre-planned session. Under pressure, I prioritized delivering my plan rather than adjusting and adapting to maintain the learning environment. That means my decision making became reactive, not principalized. Here, the literature helped me to critique this properly. Research on coaches and behaviors shows that youth athletes get more benefited by when the coaches provide structure without becoming authoritative. For an example, when coaches provide clear rationale, are very respectful during communicating with the students, and they create opportunities for appropriate choices. When I talk more, my behavior becomes increasingly authoritative, which likely reduces the buy-in and engagement with the students. So, in this, the solution is not to structure the plan less, rather to create a plan which is better structured and which provides better delivery in a need supportive manner. My second mistake was relying on explanations rather than effective cueing. Evidences on attentional focuses have consistently shown that external focus cues support performance and learning more effectively than internal focus cues, and this strengthens the case for cueing economy. One cue, one clear demonstration, and immediate practice rather than lengthy instructions would create a better learning environment for the students. A constraint-led approach suggests that instead of trying to control behavior through repeated verbal instructions, I could have shaped my behavior by manipulating the task constraints. For example, rules, boundaries, scorings, and roles. In my case, I should have modified constraints earlier so that on task behavior that became easiest behavior for the children. Second example reinforced the same weakness in a different setting. In a session which addressed the para athletes, I noticed that when I was trying to keep the plan as it is on the track, I spoke more than I listened. The athletes' responses made it clear that my communication was not autonomy supportive, rather, it became overly directive. The link across both the contexts is consistent. Under pressure, I defaultly control through more talking instead of using supportive structure and better cueing without a designed task. My strengths were that I had technical intent and organized the session progressively. I also used demonstrations and attempted to maintain the complete safety and security throughout the session. However, my weakness was behavioral and decision based. Under stress, I extended my instructions and delayed the adaptations within the athletes. Critically, that response wasn't evidence driven, whereas it was emotionally based. A better decision rule for me is, according to Ford, Wolf, and Chow, would be when attention drops within the athletes, I could have reduced the talk time and increased supportive structure and modify constraints immediately. That will keep the practice representatives and protect learning conditions within the athletes. Now what I will do is implement 3 changes and measure them. 1 cue, 1 demo, immediate practice. Using external focuses, cues wherever possible, and then giving the feedback between the reps rather than stopping the group for longer explanation. At the beginning, I will set the behavioral expectations under 20 seconds. I will provide the rationale and use bounded choices so the structure doesn't become controlling over a period of time. I will time the transitions by adding roles, scoring system, and simple penalties for disruptions. So the behavior is shaped by the task design and not by the repeated verbal controls. I will measure the improvements by these 3 parameters. First, number of stoppages. Second, average time taken for the transition between the exercises or sets. And the third, time on task estimated across the whole session. To conclude, this reflection identified a specific limitation in my coaching. Under pressure, I defaulted to become more authoritative by talking a lot and sticking to the plan, which reduced the engagement of the students and it worsened the behavior. I chose Discroll's framework because it forces a practical outcome, a clear action plan for the next session, rather than extended descriptions which were been the outcomes of the different other theories. Going forward, my coaching will improve through short and high quality instructions, autonomy supportive structure, and better constraint manipulation measured through stoppages, transitions, and time on task will hopefully improve my sessions in future.